Next, I'm going to coat the inside of the eyes and mouth with a product that I love by Polygem. It's called Easy Carve. It's a 2-part epoxy clay that you mix up 1-to-1, and you use water to smooth it out, and it has like a marshmallow consistency, and it dries hard, carvable, and it's very lightweight, so it's very versatile. So now I'm going to start carving this. Okay, so you're going to want to take equal parts A and B, have a pot of water, bucket, and then you're just going to start folding them together. And when it starts to get sticky, just put more water on it. Okay. All right. And just keep incorporating it until you no longer see any streaks of opposite colors. It should all be blended to be like one color, just like an off-white cream. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So I'm going to dip in water, just pull a chunk off and set that aside. Just take what I'm going to use, and I want to coat this nice and smooth, so I'm just going to start pressing it on and smoothing it out. Okay. All right. And then I'm going to do this all the way around. I'm going to sculpt some shapes into it, just make it a little bit more interesting before we pour our final coating over the outside. So I'm just going to go all the way around with this. In the last video, I applied Easy Carve to the inside of the eyes and mouth to help smooth out that surface. Then I went ahead and I applied the first coat of Styroplast by Hotwire Foam Factory. It is a 2-part epoxy-like plastic that flows out like a heavy paint. And when it dries, it makes a real smooth, like plastic coating. It is still slightly flexible. You can see it give a little bit, but it still is relatively lightweight. Now, it does have some blemishes in it from the foam, like some little blips, and you can see still some of the lines from the glue coming through, and that kind of stuff drives me crazy. So I'm going to sand it all down with the grinder, and then I'm going to pour Styroplast a second time for a perfectly smooth finish. I will make a video on that. And then I went ahead and added a stem. So into the top of that PVC pipe, it came to about right here. Then I took 1/4 inch armature wire. It's like really dense and heavy. And I stuck it into the center of that pipe. And then I took this product called Zoopoxy or 307 Light by Polygem. It's a 2-part epoxy clay that you mix into like a powder that thickens it up. So I sculpted this kind of like stem-like shape, kind of twisting up and then gradually getting thinner over the little twisty spot. So I'm gonna go ahead right now and grind off all of the blemishes, and then we will pour Styroplast again. And then from the first pour, you can see that there's like a lot of weird drips and stuff, because as this stuff sets up, you have to move really quick because it gets hot and then it stops moving and it kind of freezes up. So you only have about 15 minutes to get the product on your piece. So I'm gonna go grind all these off, clean it up, and then we'll come back. We'll pour a second coat of Styroplast, and then we will start painting this bad boy. Now that I've grinded off and sanded all of the imperfections and the drips on the bottom from the first pour of Styroplast, it's time to pour the second and final coat. Styroplast is sold by Hotwire Foam Factory, and it's a 2-part like epoxy plastic-like material that flows out really well, and it's smooth and it's lightweight, and it's the best finish I think for pumpkins because it has more of a realistic look. I have coated my foam pumpkins in the past with foam coat, and it was cool at first. I liked it, but it had a gritty texture to it, and it wasn't until I tried this product that I realized that this is the ideal material to coat your foam pumpkins. So Styroplast is mixed 3 to 1. So I'm just gonna mix the whole gallon. So here I've got a whole gallon of the Styroplast, part B. I'm just gonna dump in the whole container of A. Now, with working with Styroplast, you have to work very quickly because it starts to set up. So I've got about 10-15 minutes before it starts like heating up and getting tougher to move. So you really have to work fast, especially if it's in a warm environment like it is in my shop right now. So here we go. And Styroplast, when left in large quantities like this, will actually make it set off faster. So you want to get it out of the bucket and onto your project as fast as possible. And try to be a little bit cleaner than I am. Make sure you get the bottom. Okay, it's a nice uniform color. I'm gonna call it good. All right, we're on the clock. I have this thing on a Lazy Susan to try help me move it around because time is of the essence. All right. Okay, you can be messy because it's all just going to start running down and flowing. It's about speed with this product. Okay. Face is really important. We need to get this looking as good as possible. goes my rug. Okay, I can feel the pot of material already starting to heat up. Okay, the product is starting to set. I can feel it thickening up. Just need to get it on here. Okay. If you have someone that can help you, that's great. But me, I often work alone, so I'm just used to doing things in awkward positions. Unfortunately, there is a lot of wasted material on the bottom here, but it's sad when that happens, but sometimes there's just no way around it. Okay, so now as it starts setting, we need to start wiping some of these drips out. And you need to pay attention to just watching it, because if it sets up too much, when you do that brush back, it will stay like that. It's already setting up. I'm just trying to be mindful of these drips on the bottom. Really don't want that one right there. Okay, so I'm just gonna, don't want those drips. Okay, so I can tell that this is already set up beyond the point where it's gonna completely flow back into itself. So to keep the top as nice as possible, I'm not gonna mess with that anymore. I'm just gonna watch the bottom. I'm actually going to help it thin out by going downward. Okay. Kind of flow with it. Okay, I don't want to mess up the face too much, so I'm just going to not touch that. Okay, it kind of leaves some of these like traveling lines on the bottom, and I actually like it. I think it kind of gives some of the ridges that real pumpkins have, so I'm not really too worried about that. However, I do not like that drip right there. Okay. All right. It's not perfect, but it's really hard to get perfect. So sometimes you just have to be happy with what you got. Okay. Yeah, I don't really love the this little sag right here, but I'm not too worried about it because I can kind of sand that out a little bit with a grinder before we paint it. But it still looks pretty good. It looks better than it did before. Just kind of the point of pouring it again. So I don't really think it came out any smoother than the first pour. So it wasn't really necessary to do the second pour. The only thing that I benefited from the second pour is underneath here, I didn't have it up elevated. So all of this material was kind of gathered around the bottom. So then I had to cut it off. And that kind of made the bottom kind of a mess. I wish I would have done that the first time. Okay, and then I want to go through and wipe something. Oh no, I hope I didn't mess up his eyebrow. Okay, it'll be okay. When in doubt, don't touch it. Okay, I'm just gonna leave it alone at this point. Some of these little drips I can just grind off with the Dremel. It's not a big deal. Okay, so the nice thing about this product is they want you to spray it with whatever paint coating you want to use, like while it's still tacky before it's even dry. So I'm going to give it like 10 minutes. We'll come back and I will spray it with my first layer of spray paint, and that will give it the best bond. And then when that's all dry later this afternoon, we'll do the finishing colors with the rest of the colors of spray paint. We'll get the airbrush out, we'll paint the stem, and he'll be ready to light up. And we'll fill in the eyes with like a plastic film that I'll show you later. And tonight we'll be able to light them up. It's been about 20 minutes since I poured my second coat of Styroplast. I can still feel the product curing as it's still very warm. One nice thing about Styroplast is if you work on top of some kind of a plastic-like material like this tarp, it will not stick to it. So you can literally just peel it up and off of your tarp and it'll clean up real nice, good as new. Okay, so they recommend that you spray whatever material you want while it's still tacky and curing for the best bond. So my favorite spray paints to use are the Montana Gold series. They sell them at Michael's, but they're like $13 a can, so use one of the coupons. Or I order them from Dick Blick, and they're like $7.50 a can and free shipping over $35. So these are my favorite spray paints. I love the sheen of it. It's like a satin. I think it's a real good, realistic sheen for the pumpkins. The color ranges are great. It's just my favorite. So I'm going to start here with Shock Yellow. And I'm just going to put a layer of this down first. I'm going to open a window here so I don't get stoned off of spray paint. Okay. Now, one thing that I noticed that by using spray paint while it's still tacky, it actually helps the Styroplast to cure faster. Now, whether it's actually doing that or not, I'm not sure, but I feel like it helps it to set up quicker. So we're just going to get a layer of it. I like to use multiple shades of color and just work it just like you would an airbrush. there's a spot right here in the second pour that I really don't like, but I don't care because no pumpkin is perfect and it's on the back side, so I'm not going to worry about it.